Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Mili, which is short for Milica, which in my native tongue of Serbia means gracious, I guess, face. So I have over 10 years of experience working in different aspects of music and entertainment, but predominantly within licensing and publishing. So I've worked for an independent publisher in Italy, which was a fantastic experience, then transitioned into a role at a record label in New York, Wind Up Records, and was working with women in music and still work with them as a fantastic organization. I encourage you all to join, and I'm currently in a role of business development for the United States for a company called BMAT, that is a music monitoring company that is originally from Spain. So what we basically do is that we provide data to all of those who want to know where their catalog is being played, from TV, radios, to digital, to venues, and so on. So it's a very nice element to my career. And it's, as I'm sure we all are seeing, there's so much more need for metadata being correct. So I'm happy to be in this role and to kind of like combine everything I know about publishing and rights management and see how that can improve the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you, Millie. Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle Mignona, and I'm the Business Affairs Manager at 411 Music Group. I've been with 411 for almost 5 years, and that's really where my music career started. So I haven't been to a lot of places, but I've got a lot of experience within 411, and my role has changed a few times, but now I'm focused mainly on all of our contracts and licensing and registrations. So I have a lot of experience with that side of things and the monetization of our music.
Awesome. Mike?
Yeah, my name's Mike Warner. I started out as a DJ, got into music production, got into self-releasing music, and spent a lot of time focusing on the streaming world. Wrote a book called Work Hard, Playlist Hard, created a few online courses, do a lot of events and things like that. Outside of that, I also work with a company called Chartmetric. I look after artist and label relations, and we provide music data. Sounds like a very frequently used term now, but data is key in a lot of people's careers. So we provide music data relating to charts, playlists, radio airplay, sync in film and television, and social media, and a bunch of other cool stuff.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here today. I feel like this conversation is going to go in a lot of different directions because you all have so much history and so much experience when it comes to ways to monetize your music. And just to get us started and engage our audience, Danielle, tell us, what are sort of the primary revenue streams for artists today?
I think the one that I see the most is the performance rights from your performance society. So I guess the important thing is to note like that there's a difference between like an artist and a writer. So they're not necessarily the same person, but when they are, that makes things easier for metadata and collecting your royalties, I guess. But so I think for me, being the publisher and collecting on performance royalties, that is the main area of monetization and the main stream of revenue that we see. And mechanicals are huge too, and especially with the Music Modernization Act that is in effect now. They're in the process of like building the organization right now. I've watched a few webinars with the new CEO, and that's going to be, I think they're going to start paying royalties out in January. So in the summer, their website's going to be launched. It's called the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective. And that's kind of taking over from Harry Fox, and you'll be able to collect your mechanicals that way. So that's another huge revenue stream.
Yeah. I also just want to say, and a little bit of this is for myself too. I think when we talk about monetizing music, there are so many technical terms that we use, and I know even just in your conversation now, Danielle, we're just throwing out terms as if everyone knows them. So I'm going to ask that we sort of start to break down some of these and what it actually means. So Danielle, you mentioned publishing royalties, and what exactly is that, and how does an artist collect it?
Yeah. So publishing royalties, it's the actual composition of the song, the underlying song itself. So not the recording that you know by ear from listening to it on your record. And it's those royalties that the writer wrote and the publisher is exploiting, which is the term used in the industry, exploiting, even though that kind of sounds like a negative term, but it's the industry standard language. Yeah, so those royalties are collected through the public performance societies. So that's BMI, ASCAP, CSAC. And as a writer, you should be affiliated with one of those if you're in the US. And there's corresponding societies wherever, if you're in another territory or country.
Yeah. And for Millie and Mike, are there any other sort of revenue streams that you know of for artists today that you want to speak on?
I would say, I mean, this was a fantastic summary. I'd say maybe, I mean, back in the days before the crisis happened, I mean, a good revenue stream would be from obviously live events and merchandising. I think that's another key element, especially coming from a different sort of like market from Europe. Then I've seen a very interesting trend of merch being such a valid asset for any, fan engagement here in the States. And I think that struck me as a good surprise that people are, fans are actually spending and it's a good revenue stream for artists. But I mean, that doesn't mean that it's, with the pandemic, this will stop. I'm hoping that this revenue stream will still be alive for artists.
Yeah, and I think that as what we're seeing right now is that a lot of companies, labels, anyone sort of in the music industry is really trying to figure out how can we bring back live performance, whether it's virtual or you're sitting in your car and you're watching someone. How do we create that and how do we monetize off of it? Mike, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's changing day by day. This year is really, we had no idea how much things would change since January, so, but I guess there's different types of revenue, but also it's what's important right now. If you're an artist and you've lost all of your touring revenue and that was what was keeping you going, you don't necessarily want to wait for your next royalty payment, as awesome as they can be. So that's why a lot of the DSPs, such as Spotify, will allow you to have a fundraising link where people can directly, I guess, donate money to an artist to support them. Some artists don't like to just ask for charity as such. They're okay, but they want to continue working on music and not necessarily have to go and find another job in the meantime. So they have been doing live streams on services like Twitch, where people can once again give them money in the way of virtual tips, which can go directly to the artist, minus a small cut, of course. Outside of that, obviously, there's a lot of long-term things. I mean, I talk about streaming and playlists and things like that. That's not going to make you money instantly. That's more of a long-term thing, and it should be part of where you're paying attention to. Obviously, I think right now, everyone that was spending all their time touring on the road is just turning on the camera and going live and just saying, here I am. I mean, I've seen, successful touring acts just going live on Instagram and saying, hey, we were okay because we were touring, but we're not making new music. We're only making money when we perform. So this is it. So if you like this, if you could just spare a few dollars. And, that can be any artist at any stage. It's okay to say, if you like this, slide a few dollars my way.
Yeah, I think I like that you bring up streaming, and I know that's your wheelhouse. And so I want to bring us back to sort of, Danielle, when you were talking about PROs, because I feel like understanding the base for that will get us to sort of the conversation around streaming. And so on the call today and in our audience, we have a lot of emerging artists, and a question that we always get on the music forward side from our artists is, I've written a song, I'm working with my friends. At what point do I need to sort of register with an ASCAP or a BMI or begin to sort of catalog what I'm doing if I'm just sort of working with my friends? I'm wondering, Millie, if you have any advice in that space.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I'd say, I mean, definitely have your have your copyright in place, and definitely like the you know, the splits between if it's you. And I always stress this out, and again, I haven't really necessarily worked with the artists a lot, but I've, you know, having worked for a record label, I've come across a lot of different, you know, agreements, and you know, luckily it was all you know, well managed. But the reality is that so many times artists just, you know, they're creative human beings, they just don't really think it's necessary to sit down, pin down a sort of say contract, for lack of a better term, and understand who did what. Well, that can be a really fundamental aspect down the road, and unless that's done well at the very beginning, understanding who wrote the lyrics, who wrote the music, and what extent. I know there are companies out there who actually offer, you know, help to sort of like manage this whole process, because it is just not naturally something that a songwriter would think about. But that down the road is essential, because that will allow you to register with the society, and then hopefully for what, you know, what we do as our company BMAT, you know, register your, like, you know, monitor your songs properly, so that down the road with that metadata, the specific codes, we can go and report back to the society, and society can have a statement and look at it and say, okay, this is the song that was played, and this is the royalty that is being distributed. So in a nutshell, like, number one thing is just make sure to have the publishing splits, you know, co-writing splits, you know, well defined, like literally in a written, you know, form. And then from there, because there's, I think, I mean, it's worth mentioning for everyone, and I know like the other panelists are aware of it, but for the crowd, just, you know, copyright, you know, is there the second you know, have the lyric on your notebook, but it's a completely different step unless you don't take it to, you know, to register with a society, you know. And so to make your life better, and obviously down the road make some, you know, revenue for yourself, and start, you know, getting momentum and building your career as a professional musician, songwriter, it is an absolute must that you register with the society. There's just not, you know, it's surprising sometimes how, you know, how much lack of knowledge there is. Because yes, technically the second you wrote that song, it is yours, but until you actually go and do the necessary steps to register it, there's not a lot you can really claim.
Here's a question that I have, right? And then so I think it's artists know, right? And I love that the way that you explained, Amelia, is that as soon as you put that pen to the paper, that conversation needs to start happening about like sort of splits. Danielle, if I'm an artist and I'm splitting, what is that conversation around actual sort of revenue? Is it a 50-50? Is it a 30-70? What does a conversation around split actually look like?
Between the writer and the publisher. I think it can be different between like production music world versus commercial music world. So at 411 Music Group, like we kind of do both, and standard in the production music world is just a straight 50-50 split. On the commercial side, it can be a lot more in the favor of the writer. So more like 80-20 kind of thing. That's pretty traditional.
Cool. And is that based off of sort of, you're saying it's traditional, but is it based off of a word count or sort of my credibility to the writing, or is it just standard across the board?
Yeah, I wouldn't say word count. I never take that into account, but I mean, that's interesting. I think I think everything's a negotiation. So it just how good of a negotiator you are.
I bring that up because of Ariana Grande's 7 Rings, right? And how many people were actually on that song and credited as a writer. And so I think in my mind, what does that split actually look like for 7 to 12 people on a song? So that's what the strategic word count.
I can see that. Yes, I can see that being a word count kind of thing, and who was in the room, and
Yeah. So we talk about monetizing music, and we talk about sort of songwriting being a way to monetize your music, and Danielle, you sharing it being sort of an easier process on your end when they're the same person. Mike, your wheelhouse is streaming, and we know that as we're in this pandemic, that streaming has had its up and downs, and I know Spotify has had a lot to say around that. But what does streaming look like in terms of revenue? And I know earlier you said it's for the long haul, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a really hard one because a lot of people focus on the very little amount you get paid per stream, but what they don't take into account is the large number of people that may hear your music without actually specifically seeking out that song. So, you know, people could get anywhere from 100 listeners to 1 million listeners, and obviously you get paid based on that number, but you don't necessarily know how many people are going to become fans and come to your shows in the future, or how many people just had it on as background music. As far as the revenue side, as far as I can tell, the pay per stream hasn't changed. I mean, there's a lot of different reports about the level of consumption right now, and things like, oh, people are switching to podcasts, or because they're working from home, they have Netflix on in the background and things like that. Look, I mean, I haven't seen any significant change from artists that I've spoken with. Their amount of listeners and the amounts of streams have stayed fairly much the same, for lack of a better term. But I guess as far as what people are listening to, I've seen interesting reports saying that they've shifted their musical taste during this time. So people that would usually listen to EDM and go out to music festivals because they're working from home, that gets distracting for them. So during the day, they've now got peaceful piano playing on loop. You know, they still listen to their EDM tracks, but they just no longer listen to them during the day or driving to work, because that's not happening for everyone right now. So it's interesting to see that. And adding to that, I've actually seen some artists changing their release strategy as far as, it's no secret that there's artists out there, I'll use EDM again as an example, that make songs that would be played at a festival loud on a big sound system, but they also have productions that could be slower, could be more pop focused, that could go on a completely different playlist. And I've noticed that they've switched their releases, and I've seen release dates changing for a lot of these artists, where instead of releasing the heavier music right now, they're actually releasing their more pop leaning side of their productions, and releasing what they think would work better with people given the current situation and what they're listening to. I mean, I've even seen, once again, with some of these EDM artists actually releasing piano covers of their songs, just because they know that people are looking for that. And people, you know, especially with trance music, which is heavily melodic and already beautiful, to translate that into piano music actually works quite well, because people still recognize it, and it's just an alternative to listen to for them during the day. Yeah. So yeah, there's been some changes, but as far as the income, artists, I haven't seen any artists have a dip. It's stayed very much on point with what it was before this.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting perspective, Mike, that you bring up in terms of like, in the live concert space, right? You put out a piece of work, and then your fans really come to you to sort of celebrate your music in the concert space. And now what it sounds like you're saying is that artists are really finding out ways that they can meet their fans halfway, or even just go all the way. How can I now enter myself into your sort of quarantine space? The concept of EDM going piano is so interesting and intriguing to me. And I'm glad that you brought that to the conversation. I'm not sure if Danielle or really if you all have anything to add in terms of what you all have seen artists doing to begin to, or I guess continue to generate revenue now that live performance is sort of taking a hit.
I'd like to comment on the live streaming component, which again, I agree absolutely. It's taking momentum, and I'm glad that the industry is sort of like adjusting to this, because, you know, what else can we do? Concerts are being canceled. From a perspective of working for a monitoring company and actually dealing with a lot of, you know, reporting and monitoring requirements, there's still sort of this gray area that everyone's still like, you know, confused about, just because, again, as an industry, we're not expecting this, to Mike's point, like nothing, like no, this is all first time for everyone. But it'd be great, and this is what obviously we're hoping, we definitely have the capacity to monitor all the possible live performances that are now, you know, streamlined digitally, but there's still not a clear picture from societies of what needs to be reported and how those licenses are going to be treated, and what's, you know, as much as we're happy that, you know, artists still, you know, get engaged with their fan base, it's sort of like still, being, you know, giving the art and music for free, which is in all, you know, bigger scale is just a shame, you know.
Yeah.
So with so many different revenues now, you know, revenue stream suffering, or just like the uncertainty of the whole situation, it'd be great to see some sort of, but again, like it's a work in progress, it's a learning process for everyone. I just wanted to point out, like, from what I'm seeing from the type of the work that I do, we have a lot of requests from artists, companies that want to, you know, send us the links, and you want to be a part of the change, but it's just, we don't know what's actually and it's not well communicated. It's just, there's still like this gray area that needs to be
out.
It's a new
to that actually. We've, like, for example, TikTok is kind of is a good example of that. And so we licensed a song where we were paid like an upfront fee, but there is no back end royalties for TikTok. But I, as like the business affairs manager and our legal consultant that I also use sometimes, we've added language into our agreements that says, like, if and when TikTok decides to participate in the blanket licenses to the performance rights societies, that we want to still be able to collect royalties on the back end, because that is kind of inevitable. Like TikTok or whatever's next after TikTok, they, you know, technology is only going to get more advanced, and so we have to be able to catch up to that and be able to collect royalties for our music, for our writers and our artists.
It's such an important note that you just made, Danielle, and we're all sort of talking about what the world used to look like and what it looks like now for artists. But Danielle, what you're essentially saying is that we're going to get back to normal. And when we do, we want to have all of our bases covered. And I feel like that's such great advice to our audience members today, is that everything that you're creating in the now is important, but when we get back to how we used to be, or the new normal, you want to make sure that you're covered and protected in all spaces. I want to take this time to take some questions from the audience, and we've got one from Naya, who talks about, essentially what she's asking is, as a songwriter, does the amount of people, and as an artist too, does the amount of people that she collaborates with on a song matter or affect the way that she establishes herself as an artist and songwriter? Do publishing companies look at her different? Do labels look at her different, that there were 7 people on that song versus 2?
I don't think so. I think if it's a great song, it doesn't matter how many people are on it.
I agree.
I mean,
I agree more.
It's easier sometimes, probably, like if there's 1 or 2 people that are the writers, but I think a lot of great songs have lots of writers, and it's, I think those really huge hits, it's pretty common for there to be 5, maybe more writers.
Right. There is this stigma in the industry about sort of, maybe it's not in the industry, maybe it's just in my mind, about artists who write their own songs versus artists who are just true performers, right? And in your word, Danielle, is that reality? I think what you're just saying sounds like it isn't, but do we look at Beyonce different than we look at maybe a Gaga who writes her own songs? Also personal favorites of mine. But are we looking at them different on the publishing side?
I don't think so. I remember personally growing up having that same bias of being like, oh, I like Debbie Gibson because she writes her own songs, like, kind of thing. And not understanding really how I see it now that, like, I'm in the industry, but like it was so foreign to me, like how someone could just be a performer, and like Frank Sinatra, I think, is a great example of that, where he didn't write any of his songs. He's just a performer and a pretty face. But I don't think in the publishing world that is necessarily a bias.
Yeah, and I also think that it's talent to do both, right? To be a performer is not nothing, right? And to be a songwriter and then to be both is
those are
We got another question from one of our actually Music Forward alumna, Demoye, who says, I'd like to know if any of the panelists recommend a certain PRO based on an artist's background, genre, and their vision. She's currently a member of BMI. So is there one PRO that you recommend based off of sort of the type of artist you are?
On the type of artist, I'm not sure. I think like their payout rates, they change per quarter sometimes. I think it's per quarter that they change. So it's like sometimes ASCAP pays more, sometimes BMI pays more. Genre-based, I don't know. Maybe BMI's more focused on like country.
Yeah. How do I decide between the ASCAP and BMI? I'm an artist. I'm looking at both of them. What recommendations? I think specifically, what recommendations are you all making between the two? And then there's.
I would be biased to make it according to like who works with us.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Right. No, but no seriousness. I do work with all 5 of them. At least, like, we have some conversations. To my understanding, none of them actually really promotes themselves as like genre specific. I will do agree that I see like a lot of like country writers assigned to BMI, but again, like that's not, we will say though, I don't know how much of the audience is, and again, I'm not promoting here anyone because we want to work with all the societies. We actually work with 110 societies worldwide, right? And the States is not making it easy for us because it's like 5 or 6 of them right now, but we're working with all of them. Point being is that between all of them, I can understand how it can be hard for someone to choose who to work with. Right. I would like, apart from maybe membership fees or anything, I would, again, maybe because my background is international, maybe look into like what are their ties with the international markets, and if that's been like a priority for an artist. Like let's say so much is happening in Asia and stuff, so like maybe understanding which of these PR societies has a stronger relationship with societies in those markets, stuff like that. But again, it does come to, I mean, also like what kind of events they offer for members. Right. I do know that like All Track is a newly formed one. They are 5th, if not the 6th. So there's ASCAP, Global Music Rights, BMI, CSEC, All Track, and also PRO. But it's like, so the All Track one is actually the one that, at least they are marketing themselves as the one catering to the indies only.
Okay.
And that's I think they're in partnership with City Baby or I don't know what but I mean that may be the only differentiation, but again,
and then CSAC also, like it's important to know, CSAC you have to be invited to, correct?
Probably, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I think giants are always like BMI and ASCAP, but again, like I wouldn't promote one over the other. It's just one. I would like from any customer, so to say, and I'm not a songwriter, I would look at like what kind of network opportunities or events they're organizing. Cool. Because at the end of the day, royalty distributions is all like, it's always like a testing thing. If you're not with one, you can change, but it's also like they offer as a, so to say, customer care.
Cool. Danielle, just a dad.
Yeah, I wanted to just add to that. One interesting difference between the 2 big ones, BMI and ASCAP, is that as a BMI writer, if you're not affiliated with, well, just start out. If you're not affiliated with a publisher, if you don't have a publisher collecting for you your publishing royalties, you actually can collect your publishing royalties through your writer's account with BMI, which is, I think, one of the most interesting things about BMI. I think ASCAP does a little bit more and is more active in the community, even though BMI is too. I think they're both very great organizations. But with ASCAP, you have to actually have an ASCAP publishing account created.
I feel like this, I mean, I'm glad that we're talking about this because I can see in the chat now that sort of people who belong to either or are sort of showing pros and cons. So I appreciate you all providing that feedback. I want to talk about a question that we got from Yasmin in our audience, who's asking, how do we get our music into commercials? Do we need a sync agent or can we send music directly? Is the first thing an artist needs do you need a manager or a deal in order to put yourself into commercials? And Danielle, I'll let you start us off with this.
Yeah, I think the best thing, because I am a sync agent, a licensing agent, music publisher, we're all of those things tied into one at 411 Music Group. So I think there are music supervisors that prefer to come to a licensing agent that knows that all of the rights are clean and like tied up in a pretty bow for them, and they don't have to worry about a writer that forgot that they had a co-writer on a song or something like that. I think submitting your music to a sync agent is probably the best way to go about that, because we have really great relationships with studios, with music supervisors, with film and TV producers, that we get daily, lots of briefs per day for search requests where we then would submit your music on your behalf.
Cool. I want to transition our conversation. Before we sort of went live, we were talking about data. And I want to talk about how we can translate data into dollars, which I also think is a really good phrase to use in the future. But Millie, starting with you, sort of BMAT is tracking a lot of data around artists and all that. So what specifically are you tracking for artists?
Yeah, great. I'll start off with just saying that I did mention that we work with over 100 societies. And that's how we actually the company started 15 years ago, because we saw the need to, improve the transparency of the metadata and just actually provide them with societies with the tools of like what's played out there, right? And this is 15 years ago. Nowadays, in today's competitive landscape, there are obviously other monitoring companies that do the same, but we kind of initially started with the societies, and we never really wanted to position ourselves with a specific entity in the music landscape. So we really want to, emphasize the neutral position that we have, meaning that we work with really all the dots in the ecosystem, from record labels to publishers to societies to broadcasters, anyone who wants to know where their music is being played. So we're like in a simple way, we are the bridge between the content owners and content consumers, users, and with like so much of the data flows, it's insane. So we basically use audio technology to understand what music is being played on TVs, radios, venues. We do have some of the data related to charts and digital, even though our, like, so to say, bread and butter is literally recording the 6,000 radios worldwide.
Oh, wow.
And I really mean that, and over 1,000 TV channels worldwide, right? There are all aspects to it. So it all comes into a dashboard that is almost in real time with all the metadata. And when I say metadata, I mean like a song by Beyonce with this code for, ISRC, which is the recording code, and ISWC, which is the work code. The difference is, okay, recording is the actual sound composition, and the work code is the actual, the song, the lyrics and the music, and the recording is the MP3, so to say, for lack of a better word. So yeah, and then when all that is combined, we actually show you when it was played, where it was played. Was it a tennis channel in the US? Was it, I don't know, gardening show in Belgium, or wherever, we spotted it on. So the value of that data obviously goes twofold. One, you have a better understanding of where your music is being played, say to an artist, and we work with over 2,000 labels and publishers.
Oh, wow.
Again, for artists, it's a different sort of like, we don't necessarily cater, smaller catalogs just because of the operational costs, but to simplify the thing, like say you are with one of our clients is Universal, right? So you say I know it's a long shot, it's every artist's dream, but Universal pays us to show them where their catalog is being played across TV and radio. And then also, like, I always, because that's how I was brought to the team, so I hold this very special to my heart, the venues. So actually, think about it. We monitor what's actually being played in the venues. This is before pandemic, but again, we know it's going to reopen at one point, and we're always there to see what's the next thing. But I like to think that because of but those are the facts. We install the devices in the clubs, and currently, before pandemic, we were in over 1,000 clubs across Latin America, USA, not yet. So we're speaking with all the societies. Hopefully that changes. Basically, we go and install the devices in a club, and we monitor the same way we monitor radios and TVs. And there's actual data what's being played in the venues. And I'll just conclude this because I think it's important for the audience. I've seen so many songwriters and artists that it's 2020, and that there are tools to actually know what's being played in the venues. And our projects have shown that 60% of what's being played in the venues is now what's being played on the radio. And I'm sure everyone can relate to it because it's just not the reality. There are some emerging bands that are playing gigs and they're not necessarily being compensated for it just because there's a lack of data of what's being played in the venues. And the societies have historically gone to distribute those based on radio data. So now we actually have the tools to tell them in, you know, Madison Square Garden or a smaller venue in North Dakota. But yeah, that all together helps bring the money to the, you know, music creator. And there's just a pure on efficiency and transparency. And that's the beauty of what we do. Because we're in the middle of this bigger, you know, chain, and we stay neutral, but we do really provide the data that everyone needs for different, you know, different reasons. Societies to pay out, but record labels, publishers also to understand, are they hitting the right targets? Are they finding some unlicensed, you know, usages and business intelligence and all of it.
Cool. I mean, thank you for sharing all of that. I feel like it was so much information and so much relevant information. And again, it looks like in our chat, we see some people, you were hitting some keywords and they're clearly right now discussing what that actually means. Mike, you're someone who spends some of your days in data too. And so when we talk about playlisting, what data as an artist am I actually looking at to help me sort of get my music out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because obviously data, it's one thing to look at it and go, cool, I got played here, I got added here, I'm charting here. But you can actually use that as leverage. Obviously, when artists were touring, they could say, hey, we're currently charting in this city or this state, this country, and you know, we think that we would be a great support act. We also have a lot of fans that are also fans of this particular artist, so consider us for this. Outside of that, as far as playlists, I mean, when you're on one, it's easy because you can obviously go back, thank the curator, try and develop a relationship and see if there's any more playlists that you could be added to in future. But if you haven't got to that level yet, you can look at similar artists and see where they're being supported, you know, where most of their fans are, and then try and target those fans. If you know that that artist is touring in a particular city, in a particular location, this is future information, of course, but you could actually target fans within that geolocation of where that artist is performing and go, hey, if you like artist X, you might also like this band. They're very similar. And I've seen that work really well for artists. And, you know, these are things that you do using data. So you look at similar artists and that have similar music to you, and you try and almost replicate their fan base and go, okay, they have fans in these locations. They also listen to this type of music. They get placed on these types of playlists. Let's see what I can do here. And, you know, even crazy simple stuff like going on social media and going to your favorite artists and not shamelessly promoting yourself the whole time, but engaging with comments from fans of that artist. Eventually, in a conversation, there's always a point where someone says, what do you do? Or they click on your profile and they see that you make music, and you know, their curiosity gets the better of them. So I've seen people do that, just conversations and using that data and having leverage to reach out and not be afraid to ask for these opportunities, because I've never seen anyone, you know, that's politely asked for an opportunity and had somebody completely, you know, blast them or crush their hopes and dreams. It's usually just a no, or you get ignored. And the ones that ask will always get further quicker.
Yeah, and I think one thing you told me too, Mike, when we were at NAMM was about sharing other people's playlists, right? And so it's not all about sort of what can you get from them, but the more you use your platform to help other people, they will in turn just naturally sort of give you that opportunity.
Exactly. I mean, you can help people first, and that's how they notice you. So that's so crazy when you mentioned NAMM, because we were all, you know, shoulder length apart on a stage with you know, over 100 people hugging each other and high-fiving, and that was in January. Wow. God. So yeah, no, you have a playlist. Anyone can curate a playlist. Anyone can log in as a user, create a playlist, make it public, add a bunch of music from themselves, and most importantly, similar artists, and then share that on social media. Or if you have an email address for that artist's manager or that artist themselves, just tell them to say, just want to let you know, I love your track. I added it to this playlist. Here's a link. And you'd be surprised that even very highly established artists, there may be someone, it may not be the artist himself, it could be someone in their team that manages their social media, but you may see a share from that artist's social media account with your playlist. All of a sudden, that is probably the coolest endorsement you can get, because that playlist you own, you know that your music is in there, and you know that your song is placed right alongside that artist, and you're reaching that artist's audience with that playlist. So, and then you become somewhat of a tastemaker, and you might be able to help other artists in the future as well by placing them on that playlist.
Yeah, I think it helps, especially right now, that the platforms that are streaming, like you said earlier, and Millie alluded to this too, is that everyone is sort of streaming music right now, or listening to, no one's in the car listening to radio, depending on what state you're in. But this is sort of the time to, that advice that you're giving, Mike, to sort of utilize it. We've talked about monetizing music and that subject and all the facets of it, but I don't want this conversation to end without talking about your career pathways. I think you all have given such good advice to our audience about being an artist or being a songwriter and actually sort of reaping the benefits of what you all do as a career. But starting with you, Danielle, how did you get to where you are today, and what does your pathway look like?
Yeah, it was pretty linear, but it happened pretty quickly. And I was living in Florida, in South Florida here, where I grew up, and had some pretty big losses, lost like both my parents in like a really short period of time. And so I wasn't really working, and I was watching a lot of TV, and I watched that show Heart of Dixie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a little cheesy, but I was watching it, and I think everybody knows that song Ho Hey by the Lumineers.
Yeah.
It was the first time I had heard that song, and I was just like moved by the song. And I don't even know if Shazam was working back then, if it was a thing, but I Googled the lyrics, found out who the Lumineers were, became like obsessed with the Lumineers. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, who gets to choose music for shows, and who gets to make someone fall in love with a song like that? I was like, that sounds like a really interesting job. And so I reached out to some friends that were like not musical artists, but just in that artist space, and figured out that was called music supervision. And so I Googled music supervision and found Berklee College of Music's online program. So I did that, and that was about a year. And I finished that in, I think, March of 2012. And March of 2013, I finished. And that's when I was like, well, I guess I finished, and I really liked it, so I guess I have to move to Los Angeles. So I moved to Los Angeles, and I met Kristen, who's my CEO at 411 Music Group. And that's like kind of, and I've just been at 411. Kristen is a great boss and friend, and I feel like I've been able to help grow 411 too, from the beginning, which is really nice. And yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. I actually really enjoyed the way that you articulated it. It's interesting because there isn't one direct pathway to what you want to do in the music industry. And Danielle, what you shared is that you sort of found an interest or something, and just with a quick search that took you in one direction, and you decided, okay, I'm gonna explore it, and you explore it to the point where I like this. Let me see what resources I have in my bag to use, and then sort of the journey played out. And I think that's a piece of advice for our audience too, is that all of our professionals are always giving space to try everything, right, and figure out, and you see what resources you have around you. So I'm glad to have you here. Well, in LA, I know that you're in Florida, but thank you for sharing that, Millie. Someone so brilliant, someone in the tech world, how did you break in, and how have you found yourself at BMAT?
Thank you. BMAT is like a result of over 10 years of fighting. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been a hustle to stay in the music industry. And I will go back to probably like an epiphany, so to say, that I have master's degree in business in creative industry, so to say, from university in Italy. So that together already was like a jump. I was in Serbia, I got a scholarship, so I had to go. I mean, I was in Italy, a foreign country, and I was like in business school, and you're hoping to get a job after you graduate, and most of my classmates were in banks or just a typical business sort of school, like after graduation path, and I got an exchange program at SMU in Dallas. And I enjoyed that, like, sort of say, a different approach to studying the States has. Believe me, Europe does not. And it was like I was choosing subjects that I was interested in. So I ended up having like some media related stuff, music, business. And I literally had an epiphany there where I was like, okay, I am studying business in this creative industries, and there I can actually have a career in this, because it's not necessarily, and I'm talking about 12 years ago, there was not necessarily that many tech companies, or it's old school record labels and publishers. You don't even know how they operate in Europe, and
right.
there's a lot of stigma on how you can make money, and as a woman, and working with copyrights and songs, forgetting, unless you're an artist that's on a stage, that's how you make money in the music, right? So I think I had a lot of barriers to break within people and my community and society. Just because, like, I was getting interviewed for banks, and I literally, this is funny, I remember my very first interview with a bank, when they asked me, this is in Italy, they asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I, naively enough, I didn't even, because I was just like, I've always been passionate about music. I'm not recording anything, but like music has always been a part of my life, and it was something that moves me. And I blankly told the guy, like, yeah, I see myself managing an artist in a bank. And obviously I never got a call back, because that's not how you see it. So I always envisioned myself to work with the artists. Just didn't know how. I knew that, like, if I was going to get a job, it has to be music related. If it's an email, I want it to be about a song placement or a metadata of a songwriter, something that's going to keep me moving. But it did come with a cost. It's a very competitive landscape. I'm a foreigner. I had to procure a visa. The record label I was working with was shut down. I had to transition into a different industry that was fashion for some time. I really suffered because it was something I was not passionate about. And finally, I mean, in the meantime, I was still active with the, working in music. I work with women in music. So it's definitely my fuel, but it is a tough business. And I don't want to.
You had a starting point as well.
Right. It's not I don't want to discourage people on the panel, but I also don't want to sugarcoat it. It is a tough business to have a sustainable career at.
Yeah.
And maybe unlike other people, I didn't really have clear on like what specific area of the music industry I just wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
So now I'm at a music tech company, which is a great addition and absolutely amazing element. There's so many things I still don't understand with engineering, and I never will, just because that's not my background. But it is a very dynamic environment. It's not and I guess that other people can relate to on the panel. It's not your typical 9 to 5. Like it will never be. Yeah. So I guess I was drawn, when I was at a typical 9 to 5, I was really, really miserable.
Oh, that's a good point to share. I think that the music industry isn't always going to be a sort of a typical 9 to 5, and depending on where you work and what sort of sector you're in, is what the job actually looks like. And so thank you for sharing that, Millie. Mike, you've sort of got two careers that complement each other going on, right? You started your own pathway and sort of work hard, playlist hard, but then you've got the data side of you as well. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh man, I can't believe you made me go after Danielle and Millie. They're freaking rock stars. I mean, God, so many parts of those stories, from both of your stories, I can resonate with. And you made some really good points. It's not a 9 to 5, and it never will be. But if you love what you do, you never look at the clock anyway. So 9 o'clock at night, and other people might be watching TV, and you're sitting there, but you're smiling while you're doing it. That's what happens when you find what you love and what you're meant to do. But it's not going to happen overnight. It takes a long time. My story, I don't have a very strong educational background in the music industry per se, and I always found myself struggling. I was applying for jobs with record labels as interns or anything, and kept getting knocked back. Never really got past the second stage, and I looked at my resume and I realized my resume was impressive, but it wasn't in any way related to the music industry. And so I realized that I was doing all of this work, I needed to create my own resume so that I could get those opportunities. And what that looked like was, going independent as an artist, putting in the work myself, learning how these tools work, learning how royalties work, learning how collaborations work, what happens with mixing, mastering, the entire process, so that I had a full understanding of it. And Work Hard, Playlist Hard was really the result of me never being able to find work with someone else. And so Work Hard, Playlist Hard became my resume, by putting all of my work online and just dealing with all of the ups and downs, all of the amount of times I thought about just shutting it down and taking the site down, and just going and looking at a different career path. But I knew that I wouldn't be happy. Money never came into it. Obviously now working with a established company, money is good, but it took a long time to get there. And I think that for anyone that wants a career in the music industry, don't wait. Like, yes, apply for jobs. Yes, always ask, because otherwise you could miss out on a great opportunity because you simply didn't ask. But even offering, just say to someone that if you want to get into a studio, just say, look, could I come and help out? I'm happy to go and do a coffee run if I can just sit in on a few sessions and watch and learn and see what you do. If it's a record label, just say, is there anything I could do? Could I help out with something on the marketing side? I have some skills here. I'm really good with social media. I just want to learn. I just want an opportunity to prove myself. And eventually someone will say yes. And by that point, you're going to be more than ready because you've still been doing it the whole time. Another thing that I've seen a lot more of recently is people are actually just becoming their own A&R in a way. And I know A&R is a very broad term now, but that's because of the way the industry is constantly changing. So people will actually go and seek out an artist that's in the early stages that could use some help and work with them with whatever they need. Do they need access to a mixing engineer? Do they need to find somebody to collaborate with? Do they need help getting their music released on a distributor? And start helping them with that process. And then, I've seen people do that and build an artist up to the point that a major comes along and says, where did you come from? And they say, this person helped me the entire way. And usually one of two things could happen. The major might go, okay, well, let's buy that person out. Let's give them a nice amount of money for all the work that they've done getting you to this level. Or can we talk to them? Maybe we want them. Maybe we want them on our team because they've already done the work. They've already proven themselves. You can almost bypass the whole interview process because your resume, you created yourself by doing that work.
Yeah, and you never know. I think what this pandemic has shown us is that you just never know what's going to happen, right? And specifically, I think whether we're in it or not, the music industry is always changing, and so being sharp on what's new or what's trendy, and always building your your bag of skills is always important. Speaking of sort of trending, I'm wondering if, and Danielle, we'll start with you, if there's any trends you're seeing right now in your space of the industry that you would encourage our audience members to follow.
We are definitely getting more briefs for advertising, for commercials, and a lot of COVID-19 themes of like inspirational music that's needed. Hopefully that ends and COVID is a thing of the past and we go back to getting our TV and film briefs because everything's back in production. But yeah, that's definitely a trend, just hopefully a short-term kind of a trend that I'm seeing.
Millie, how about yourself? Are you seeing one or two trends that you'd like for people to follow or suggest?
I mean, I'm biased with coming from BMAT, but yeah, we all mentioned live streams. Eventually the industry is going to have to, come up with the right solution, but it's not to be, it's a form, whether we like it. I personally cannot wait for the concerts to come back because the whole point of the authentic experience is to be, you know, in the crowd while you're, you know. So I'm happy that the industry adjusted with live streaming, but I'm also very nostalgic about the older ways. So I wouldn't, you know, I see, yeah, I see people being more and more as a trend that altogether, you know, everyone involved being so much more educated, and I'm loving that. I mean, everyone's still learning, and it's such a complex environment. It's still, after 12 years, I still struggle, and you know, it's to understand who owes what and where do they go. But to mention what Danielle was also mentioning in the beginning, I'm happy for the States that there's this MLC coming together next year. I think that's a nice trend and a nice. So yeah, I mean, I think the future is bright, but it is not an easy landscape to be a part of.
And it goes sort of what to Danielle was mentioning too, is that everyone has been artists, TV, sort of everyone in that creative space has just had time to create. So I can't imagine when we open back up as a world and as a society that like TV and film is all, everything that was put on hold is going to be launched, and then everything that's new. I can't even imagine what pilot season's going to look like when it comes to TV and film. Mike, trends that you want to advise our audience members to look out for and to abide by?
Look, I'm really excited to see who the new headline acts are going to be when this is over, because I feel like right now people are really using this opportunity to just like take it to the next level. And there's people that have always had that stage presence. They were ready. They're true rock stars, but they never had the opportunity. And now it's almost evened things out a little, that if they were to just go on somewhere like Twitch and go live, they can get an instant fan base. And by the time we get back to normal, they might be headlining Coachella next year, which that excites the hell out of me, because I'm like, you know, all of a sudden there's all these new artists that we're discovering as part of the process. And, you know, it's the same with music festivals as well. You know, regardless of genre, you know, country music, there's new artists that are uploading a video to YouTube that they've made. They may have made it before this happened, but people are always looking for entertainment. And like we mentioned, TV and film is on hold right now. Music industry isn't stopping, so we are the entertainment in a way. And when you see musicians hosting a live talk show and telling jokes and going live while they go for a drive to collect food safely from a restaurant or something, they're entertaining us because there's not much else that's being created right now. So I'm just excited to see what happens when we go back and who the new headliners will be. That is interesting, because in that, Mike, you are saying also another trend is that artists are being sort of more, they're letting you in more into their personal lives, right? This mask, everyone, there's no makeup. Here I am, my home. This is my home looks like. I don't have a green screen. Like, they're sort of giving you their true, authentic self. And so a trend and an advice to specifically our artists in the audience is like, give them all of you right now, because that's what people are looking for. I think audience and fans are looking for authenticity. They're looking for a bit of hope, and they're trying to find that in people, because we once found it in music. So thank you for sharing that. We've come to the time where we have to close out our session. This has been, again, such an amazing industry session talking to you all. And you all have such brilliant minds and interesting perspectives on what's going on in the industry. For our audience members out there, Music Forward has more than just our weekly industry sessions. We've got workshops, whether you want to be on the stage or off stage. We've got opportunities for you to continue learning from industry professionals like the ones that you heard from today. So I encourage for you to go to our website, sign up for our programming, and stay involved. And Millie, Danielle, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time out of your quarantine days and giving back to Music Forward in this unique and powerful way. And until next time, I'll see you all later.